Hey, what's up, YouTube? Welcome to Monday's edition of The Breakfast Club. Got that funk here? Thanks for watching. I wanted to address some of the points Joe made in his video yesterday called Colonize Congress. I found Joe's video pretty interesting, and I do appreciate the fact when someone's sort of thinking outside the box and trying to come up with ideas that haven't really been tried before, insofar as attempting to rectify the situation with the way things work out in general elections as far as the electoral college goes, and how some states are just so solidly red, and most of those states, well, not most, but many of those states are states with incredibly low populations, and it would be very easy, in Joe's opinion, to sort of flip those states by moving more liberally minded people into the area, and that way you could have a real impact on election results. And I think it's an interesting idea. I think it was the Green Machine in the comments section who commented it's kind of like reverse gerrymandering, and that is pretty much exactly what it is. Reverse gerrymandering. You might also kind of call it a form of gentrification, which is a little bit more of a disturbing way to put it. And I would also say that, even if you didn't want to use such a loaded term as gentrification or even gerrymandering, the bottom line is such an idea would only be feasible if jobs were plentiful, accommodation was plentiful, and moving wasn't one of the most stressful things you can do in life. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and so while I think it's an interesting idea, I know even with the best will in the world and some financial assistance to those who were choosing to participate, I don't really think it's going to have any chance of really gaining any traction. But what really could and should happen to gain traction is like the most obvious suggestion in the world, and that is to occupy the party with people who are determined to push it to the left and away from big money interests and so on. And when Bernie Sanders spoke of the political revolution, I think that's an important concept that needs to proceed now more than ever with Trump becoming the president. Assuming, of course, the Electoral College elects Donald Trump. Hasn't happened yet. It almost certainly will happen. But this is 2016, and I don't actually write any possibilities off at the moment. If this year has taught me anything, it's to expect the unexpected. So, anyway, I digress. My point basically is when Donald Trump becomes president, we all know it's going to be a fucking disaster. Just the fact that Donald Trump has so many blatant conflicts of interest that he seems to want to sort of wave away, and so on. And for me, really, the most terrifying thing about the oncoming presidency of Donald Trump isn't actually Donald Trump himself anymore. It used to be. But when you look at the list of people that he's sort of loading up his transition team and his early picks for his cabinet, it's going to be the most right-wing administration in history. And, call me cynical, but it looks very much like it's probably going to be one of the most corrupt administrations in history as well. And that's saying something, because when Ronald Reagan was president, over 100 officials working in the White House were indicted with criminal charges. So, Reagan's administration would be a pretty tough one to top. But Donald Trump's going to give it a run for his money. I suppose he wants to be better than Reagan at some things, and maybe being more corrupt is somehow better in Donald Trump's eyes. Again, don't rule anything out. This is 2016. Anyway, mass demonstrations to me are like a prerequisite, and I'm kind of surprised that I haven't seen more organizing going on. And I know it's a little bit rich for me to say that, but the problem for me is I don't live in America anymore, and I feel like completely impotent to affect any kind of change other than bitching about it on the internet, and that's completely pathetic. I have, at times in my life, back when the Iraq War was oncoming as well, and more recently in 2016 during the primary season, I actually did contemplate, maybe I should move to America and activist my ass off, because it really matters to me what direction my country goes in, even though I don't live there. And, because America affects the whole future of the world. It's just a cold fact, and I want my country to be something I can be proud of being from. And it's been really hard to feel that way with the election of Donald Trump. I felt the same way about George Bush, though, back in the day. Anyway, so yeah, I'm surprised I haven't. Why aren't there protest marches going on to hopefully try to flip the Electoral College? I'm really surprised I've not heard anything about that. I've seen people talking about it on the internet, not about protesting, but just about trying to flip it. Well, how are you going to try to flip it without demonstrations? I don't understand. Talking about it on the news isn't going to do a whole lot. Not much more than bitching about it on the internet will do. Never underestimate the power of the people. When they hit the streets in unison and behave themselves in vast numbers. And that's the ticket right there. Vast numbers, well-disciplined. I'm a big supporter of protest. But as I said in my recent video on the subject a few weeks ago when I was going to protest against the Dakota Access Pipeline, you know, a demonstration to be successful, to get the attention of the authorities, needs to be peaceful, needs to be large, and needs to be relentless. One demonstration never changed anything. You need a wave of demonstrations. And this is why the Occupy movement 5 years ago was a brilliant idea, because rather than have a wave of demonstration, you just had one long-standing, ongoing demonstration. A concept which I fully support and think is probably the most effective overall. But unfortunately, as we saw in 2011, the authorities were so determined to crack down. And basically there's so many instances of police using excessive force against protesters and so on back in 2011 that it doesn't bode well, and we haven't really solved the problems of the militarization of the police in the interim since then. So this is why even when protests are well behaved, if the authorities are determined to try to cause a ruck or use excessive force, being peaceful doesn't necessarily accomplish the goal that you want it to. But I'll tell you this damn straight, it's much better than having a riot or any other such nonsense like that. I can never support vandalism, stealing, or anything like that. I mean, especially when it's private property, and I don't give a shit if it's corporate. It's still private property. It's still someone else's money, not yours. If you were going to demonstrate against the government, you should be demonstrating in front of government buildings, in my opinion. And frankly, I don't support violence or vandalism, but that way, at least if something happened to the building in question, at least it's everybody's property, rather than just someone else's property that's more well off than you. Anyway, so yeah. I hope to see a lot of protests. I hate this idea that we should wait and see what Donald Trump does first to find out what to protest against. No, he's already done it. He's filled his cabinet appointments. I mean, Jeff Sessions for Attorney General, for fuck's sake. And this Steve Bannon guy, the more I learn about him, the more fucking repulsive I find him to be. And I can't believe that this is just happening right out in the open. All of Trump's business conflicts of interest are there if you want to look for them. I don't know whether the media reports them very much on TV in America, but they're there if you want to look, and it doesn't seem to be getting anywhere near as much fuss as it should. We're talking about the President of the United States. Huge potential to abuse his powers in order to line the pockets of him and his rich buddies. And you could argue, well, Paul, every president does that to some degree. Maybe so, and that's a problem anyway. It doesn't necessarily matter who's in office. That is a problem that needs to be fixed. But with Donald Trump, you've got it on fucking steroids, on overdrive. And wait and see for what? I don't understand. I wish I lived in America right now. I really do. I would want to help organize, and I don't really know what I can do from over here, and that's really frustrating. Anyway, a bit of an off-the-cuff ramble. Hope to hear what you have to say about it in the comment section down below, and I look forward to seeing what Sister Danger brings to the table on The Breakfast Club tomorrow. Until next week, may all your ups and downs be ups. Thanks for watching.